Hi, my name's Tom. I am part of the Church Resources team here at Youth of Christ, and my job is all about working with 7s to 11s in the Church Resources department. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes talking to you about the Bible. Now, the Bible is amazing and engaging. Hopefully, I don't have to convince you of that. But sometimes, as children's and youth workers, it can be hard to know where to start or difficult to know how to really get the children and young people that you're working with to engage with the content of the Bible and find it as exciting as I'm sure you do. So hopefully, I'm going to tell you a few tips that I've kind of picked up of how to do that. So the first way to do that, I think, is to think about the stories you're using. I think there's two good ways of doing this. I think the first way of using appropriate stories is to use stories that are really well known already. So hopefully the children that you're working with will already have some kind of knowledge of them, maybe even if they don't go to church normally or haven't really been to church before. Stories like Noah and the ark that he built, stories like David and Goliath, some of the stories that Jesus told. Some of these are really well known in our society as a whole and not just kind of in Christian circles. So it can be really good to use these stories as a way in to help the children you're working with have a kind of instant connection and instant bit of knowledge about the Bible. The second way of doing this is to use stories that are less well known, but are kind of cool and might give children a bit of a different understanding of what kind of thing is in the Bible. So one that I love is a story of a guy called Ehud, who was a judge in the book of Judges. Clever little naming thing they've done there. And there's a king called Eglon, and Ehud is upset with Eglon, so stabs the king with a sword. But Eglon is so fat that the sword that he used to stab him with goes all the way in and is kind of enveloped by King Eglon's huge rolls of fat. It's really gross and really cool, and Ehud kind of has to put his hand out and run away before he gets caught by the guards. And so stories like that are just a really exciting way of engaging children in the Bible in ways that they maybe didn't think was possible or didn't know existed. The next thing to think about is the environment around you, the room you're in, the space you're using, and thinking about how you could maybe use that to your advantage or thinking about how to use that creatively to help the Bible stories come to life. It's important to think about how long the children are kind of sitting down for or how long they've been doing the same thing for. So maybe if you're doing an activity that involves sitting down beforehand, then a Bible story, then something else that's sitting down, that is a long time for a child to sit down for and just be listening or just be not active. So think about what you're doing kind of in and around your story that might affect their ability to engage with the Bible story specifically. The other thing to think about is, could you be using the space you've got more effectively? If you're in like a big church hall or you've got a big area to use, could you be telling a story so the children could move around and get involved and not just kind of listen to it but kind of take part in it? One thing that we found is really helpful is dressing up. My nice little hat. Children love to dress up and put things on and put on wigs and put on different t-shirts or jumpers. So dressing up and things like that children can just kind of do and get involved with and engage in is a really great way of helping them to kind of feel part of the story and part of the engagement. I'm going to take this off now. Pop it down there. The final thing is just involvement with the children in general. Dressing up is a great way of doing things, but using kind of interaction in your story. Could you have kind of trigger words that every time you say a certain word, the children do something else? So we sometimes do that with things like we'll add in birds tweeting into stories we say, and in the kind of description of things that are happening, we'll add in the phrase tweeting birds or birds, and every time we do that, the children make a bird noise or have to flap their wings or do something like that. Not that children have wings, but you get what I'm saying. And so using kind of interaction to help them engage with it. Maybe if there was a crowd in your story, you could get at one stage the children to stand up and follow the character of Jesus around so that they could be the crowd. Maybe it's a story that is really obvious what's happening and you could give children parts of the story, so even though they don't have a script or know what's going on, you could describe what was happening and some of the children could kind of act it out along with your description, along with you telling it, to help them to engage in it. And again, when the children feel like they're part of the story or they're involved in the story, it really helps them understand it and learn it and remember it because they feel like it's something that they were involved in. Another thing you can think about doing is using real life experiences of the children or things going on in the world to help children engage in Bible stories where similar situations have occurred. So it might be that children are something really good's happened in their life or something they're really struggling with that you could use as a kind of tool. So maybe there's some really good friends in your group and you could use that kind of idea of friendship to talk about David and Jonathan, who were amazing friends in the Bible. Maybe looking at things that have happened in the news of issues around war and issues around poverty, and you could look at some of the stuff that happened in the Old Testament, where some of the kind of different tribes and different people were at war with each other and were kind of having conflict, and you can use the kind of real life situations they might know about or might have heard about, or might have overheard the news if their parents are watching it, or heard people talking about it, that can help you kind of engage with similar situations that were happening in the Bible. And I've had some really good conversations with just kind of starting from a point of kind of real world situations and things that the children are experiencing, and being able to bring kind of Bible experience and bring Bible stories into that to help them engage with what's going on for their lives, but what's gone on in the Bible as well, and how they can then maybe learn from the way that people dealt with situations in the Bible, and get a bit of knowledge that way as well. The last thing I'm going to talk to you about for a little bit is how you help children engage in Bible stories without directly using the stories themselves. It's obviously really easy to help a child learn about a story if you tell them the specific story, but we're going to talk a little bit about how you can do different things to help them engage in the story in the same way, without specifically telling it. So for example, games are a really good tool and a really good thing you can do for this. So if you're looking at the story of the lost sheep, for example, it might be that you've got some space in a hall or a garden where you could hide a load of cuddly toy sheep or cut out pictures of sheep around the area, and have the children go and look for them and go and find them. And then you can use that as a kind of discussion starter, or a tool to talk about, how did it feel to find these things? How did it feel when you knew something was lost? And get them to really engage in the story. And you're getting them to kind of do the same thing that happened in the Bible story, but in their own experience, and they can kind of experience what was happening in the story themselves and use that as a tool to help kind of understand what was going on. I really hope this has been a helpful video, maybe giving you some tips and ideas of how you can use the Bible to help children and young people in your group engage in Bible stories and engage in the Bible in a better way. If you want more ideas, there's all kinds of stuff on the Resources website, resources.yfc.co.uk. We've got books of stories and story scripts that you can download as well from our Youth of Christ shop. So please do head over there and check those out if you're interested.